This event is organized by the 25,000-member independent Hewlett-Packard Alumni Association, operated by former employees who volunteer their time, not endorsed or supported by HP. We help each other with life after HP. If you know someone who is leaving HP or has recently left, our website has a checklist of things they need to do as soon as they know they are leaving and shortly thereafter. We're at hpalumni.com.
My name is Scott Hamaguchi. I'm lucky enough to be a financial advisor with Addison Avenue Investment Services, which is the investment arm of First Tech Federal Credit Union. On behalf of First Tech, I just want to say thank you to all of you who have helped us reach the number 7 spot, which is new for us, as far as rankings among credit unions in the country. So for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we're formerly the HP Credit Union, formerly Addison Avenue Credit Union, and now we go by the name First Tech Federal Credit Union. So thank you all for helping us be successful, and if there's anything we can do, always feel free to come let us know.
Welcome, HP current employees, alumni, and guests to our LinkedIn webinar. I'm Barbara Madden, Personal Financial Advisor, Ameriprise, ex-HP, and your moderator. We have a wonderful teacher tonight, Sandra Clark, to help us minimize the failures and get us up to speed and running on the free basic LinkedIn. For more than 25 years, Sandra managed the on-site training department for the University of California, first at UC Berkeley Extension and then at UCSC Extension in Silicon Valley. She now provides individuals and businesses with LinkedIn workshops and coaching through her own company, LinkedIn Mentoring. Sandra is also a frequent speaker about LinkedIn to professional organizations in Silicon Valley. Welcome, Sandra Clark.
Thank you. I wish you could see this wonderful smile that I got from Barbara. That makes me feel settled down and welcome to start off. Hello to all of you there, whatever time zones you're in, wherever you are. It's fun to be here with the HP community again. The last time I spoke to the local HP community, I was asked to angle this presentation a little bit on LinkedIn for skeptics, because I was told that HP people were really very skeptical about social media and LinkedIn. Well, what I found during that presentation is that you're really not all that skeptical compared to other people. You have concerns and questions, but you're very open to using LinkedIn for your success. Yes, I do work with job seekers. I also work a lot with small business owners who want to promote their own business. But the biggest part of my business is working with people who are successful in their work, and they want to remain successful. They want to be thought leaders in their field. They want to be sought after if they ever want to get another job. And it's something that you just can't ignore. This, I wouldn't say it's exactly birth to grave, but not far off. You really have to pay attention to your brand. So I'd like you to think about your LinkedIn profile of your own right now. And nobody can see you blushing, and I don't want you to go off the screen and be looking at your LinkedIn profile because you'll get distracted, and I've got more stuff to share with you. But if you were to think about, just bring it up in your mind's eye, your LinkedIn profile, with 1 being a very low, you barely got anything on there. Okay, we'll call 0 no profile at all. We'll talk about that later. 1 being, it's there. I probably don't even remember my password. Through to 5, dang, I'm good. I got it all there. Maybe I can learn a couple of tips and tricks, but I could probably teach this presentation. So wherever you are there, and I would pretty much guarantee if I could see a show of hands out there as well as in here, it would be pretty similar. There would be a few of you who are willing to admit that you were a 1-2. A couple of brave folks who would say they were a 4-5, and then the rest of you say you were in the middle somewhere. And I would have probably at least one holdout who insists that he doesn't have a profile and he has no intention of getting one. If I think about it, I may tell you the story of the person in the local audience who told me that last time. We're going to be working together soon. So here, just to give you an idea, this is what I would call a 1. This is a former HPer, actually. She started her own very successful floral business. She has an unusual name, so at least they know it's the person they know. And this is her afterwards. This is 2 hours working with her. She was a great candidate. She was very open to presenting herself online. So this now becomes, yes, the background picture is pretty, and that's something you can and should certainly do, but it's more than that. It's making everything about her have a whole lot more pizzazz. So I wanted to show you another example. When I do this in a live audience, I can't do it on a slide because the screenshots are too blurry, but because you're on a screen, I'm sharing a couple with you as example. So here we have one. Okay, I'd call it around a 3. Is it terrible? No. Does it tell you much of anything? This gentleman is actually a job seeker. He's a very successful marketing executive. Doesn't help him very much at all. So this is him 2 hours later. Now, the picture is not 10 years old. I don't meet my clients in general in person, so I didn't know that. It's not just a better picture. The other one is literally 10 years old. He now has some key words. He's got the title of the job he wants to get. Now, you're not job seekers, probably in general. Some of you are. So some of these tips may or may not be relevant to you. But I did want to show you a couple of actual makeovers because it's kind of fun. So your LinkedIn presence, this is kind of what we're going to look at during this presentation. We're going to look at why the heck you should care. You say, hey, I got a great job. I'm never going to leave. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I hate social media. We're going to see if I can turn your opinion around on that. We're going to talk about how you can make a great impression and also a formula for your LinkedIn success. And I'll define what I consider success. Now, LinkedIn is social. And what the heck does that mean? It means a variety of things. I already know that some of you are not looking at the screen. You're already in your LinkedIn profile and doing things on there as well. You're distracted. Well, you're looking at your email popping up. You're maybe looking at Facebook. Close it down. Pay attention. There's so many things that are distractible. You can, as well as the distraction, everyone in social media has a different opinion. You'll ask somebody and they say, oh, you should absolutely do this. You'll talk to somebody else. You should do something completely different. It's a great topic for one of the parties that are coming up over the holiday season or other times. If you have a difficult time deciding what to talk with people about that you meet, start talking about social media. I guarantee you will have people clustered around you wanting to talk to you. Everybody's got a different opinion, and that's just the way it is. So just enjoy it. Go along for the ride. There is not one way to do everything. There's always a variety of ways. And LinkedIn's been around for a while. That doesn't mean there are rules that are established. It's constantly changing. So I'm going to talk tonight about 3 major mistakes. I'm going to talk a lot about what you should do, and I'm going to talk about 3 things in particular that I would really recommend you don't do. Mistake number 1, I referenced this earlier. No LinkedIn profile at all. Please, would you go to a networking event or a meeting and not have a business card or have a blank card like this? I don't think so. With LinkedIn, if you don't have a presence on LinkedIn, it's almost like you don't exist professionally. And so I really encourage you, if you're resistant about it for any reason, or you're feeling, you know what, I don't have one now, I'm 40, 50 years old, how the heck do I start now? I do quick start programs for people to get them up and running very quickly. So there's always a way to get you going in here. It's always worth doing. And I encourage you to do that. And if you need convincing, talk to me afterwards. Send me a message. So why the heck should you care? Well, potential clients, coworkers will check you out. I had one client, she'd been in the company 20 years, no plans to leave, and her department was completely reorganized. She now had about 50 new people in her department that she hadn't met before. What she did was we did her LinkedIn profile to introduce herself to her new team. So this is something you may not have thought about. This is a way to find mentors within your company, to find out more about other people that you might want to deal with professionally or personally. Then there's potential employees will check you out. People usually leave a company because they don't like their manager or the people they work with. Yeah, they may say it's money. It's usually not. So you better believe if they're looking at a new job, they're going to look at the profiles of people that they're going to be interviewing with and working with. And they're going to be thinking, is this somebody that would be a good manager? Is this somebody that's going to teach me? Am I going to get to work on cool projects? And you won't know all the great employees that you've lost because they've looked at your LinkedIn profile. I actually work a lot with companies who get that, and they'll bring me in and have all of their managers work with me to have better profiles to attract good employees. And I think most companies find it very competitive to get employees nowadays, so you better have a good profile and not do anything to take a risk of losing someone. Yes, if you're looking for a job, all kinds of job leads and opportunities to build relationships that will get you the job, that will deepen a relationship within your company. So that's some of the reasons why you should care. And then there are simple numbers reasons why you should care. If you're numbers guys, I'm not a numbers girl, but I understand you're out there. There are 347 million users, couldn't even say the number, it's too big, users worldwide. Big number. You can't ignore that many people. There are 107 million, and these are numbers from earlier in the year, so they're even bigger now, 107 million in the U.S. There are 2 new users per second. That is phenomenal. I don't know, somebody do the math. In the last 10 minutes, we've added how many new users to LinkedIn. You just can't ignore something that's that big. Now, this is a number that's very interesting. 40% log in daily. Now, you could dispute that number, but let's say it's true. It didn't come from LinkedIn, but one of the things that you'll see is a lot of things happening to get you to interact on LinkedIn. They'll be sending you emails. They'll be popping up things. They'll be doing things. And part of the reason is the more people that log in, it's a bit like the old Nielsen's ratings. If a TV show has a lot of people watching it, they can charge more for advertising. Same on LinkedIn. The more people that they can say are logging in every day, the more they can charge their advertisers. And trust me, they charge a lot. So that's one of the reasons that it's often annoying, where they're just constantly sending you things. You can control some of that. We'll talk a little bit about your settings, but you do have some control about that. But sometimes if you just kind of take a breath and say, okay, that's why they're doing it. I don't have to engage just because they're popping it up. Okay, now we're going to talk about mistake number 2. Okay, guys, no profile picture. Who's guilty? I can see you out there. You might think this is just one way, but no, I can see you. And you look just like this. If you don't have a profile picture, you actually do. You have a default one that says, hey, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, don't look at me, I'm old, fat, and ugly, please don't look. You know, we don't care what you think about yourself. We care that you've got a smile, that you look trustworthy, that you look like somebody we want to engage with. Many people will not connect with someone without a profile picture. I use profile pictures. When I'm talking to someone on the phone, I look at their picture on LinkedIn, and because I'm looking at the picture, I smile more, my hands are usually going, I engage more, and I feel like I'm really having a conversation.
Actually, we've got a quick question here. What do you think about a black and white portrait versus color?
I've seen that over the years. I would call it a stylistic thing. In general, I don't like it because it doesn't show the warmth of skin tones. But if you're kind of an arty person, you're trying to make a statement, it could be very appropriate. But in general, not a fan. If you have a reason to do things, then it's worth considering, but in general, not. I think it was a style, a fashion. It's a bit old-fashioned, I would say now, from about 4 years ago, maybe, when it was kind of the rage.
Thanks.
So here are what I overshot. Sorry about that. Some good photos. Now, they're all headshots. We just want your head. We don't want the rest of your body. The middle photo is actually a snapshot that was taken by her, an old-fashioned word, isn't it? But a shot taken by her husband against the stucco wall in her house. But she looks polished, professional. It's a great shot. The other two are studio portraits. And it's the gentleman on the right was had to really push him to get his photo taken. He was determined he was going to take it down after he got a job, but he didn't. But you need to get it up there. Another thing with photos, something to be aware of that dates you is if you see a little tiny photo, that is actually the same woman that had the nice photo in the previous screen, so she allows me to use this as a bad example because she's fixed it. When you a few years ago, LinkedIn changed their template to be more like Facebook so that the space for a photo was bigger. And in doing that, if you had a photo there before that was little, if it didn't have a high enough resolution, it couldn't resize. If you do a crop, you can get away with doing a crop photo if you make sure you don't have people in the background and any other things. This is obviously a crop from a party or something, but it was too low a resolution to resize. And what it does is it makes you look dated and it makes you look unprofessional. So if you're going to use a photo that you've taken yourself or had someone take in the backyard, just make sure it's good quality and full size. We don't need anything that dates us more than we already date ourselves. We're going to talk a little bit about the formula for LinkedIn success, or what I would call the formula. Nothing too mystical about it. It's complete. Sometimes people like to show off that they have a complete profile. It usually shows on your profile as like expert or all-star. But be careful, complete doesn't mean good. So I had a student who was just about to graduate with her MIS degree, and while she was a student, she had started her own business, very entrepreneurial, as a dog walker, and LinkedIn had overwritten her headline to be dog walker. So she was so proud of showing off about her all-star status. Yes, she was an all-star dog walker. Be careful. Don't get too carried away about LinkedIn's criteria for expert or all-star. You want to have keywords. Keywords are important, and they're the words that somebody would use if they were looking for you. And that's true for job search, but it's also true to help us know who you are and what you do. Your connections, I'll talk more about some of these in later slides. Your activity. Activity is important for a number of reasons. My name, Sandra Clark, is pretty common. In fact, I think there's 1,114 Sandra Clarks on LinkedIn. However, if you start to put my name in, don't get distracted, don't try it now, try it later. You start to put my name in, I will generally be no lower than the fourth Sandra Clark that starts to pop up as you look. And the reason for that is because I'm active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn assumes if you're looking for Sandra Clark, there's a really good chance you're looking for this one because I'm active on LinkedIn. So if you've got a common name, being active is one of the ways to be one of the first people to show up. There are other rewards for it too, but that's a kind of funny reason. I had a client in New York the other week who had only 30 connections, and I wasn't one of them, and I still showed up as about the fourth Sandra Clark on his list when he pulled up. So it's worth your claim. You can have a claim to fame even if you have a common name. So those things all together give you maximum visibility and a high search engine optimization ranking, SEO. That may not matter to you. If you're a job seeker, it should. But even if you're not a job seeker, it does matter. It makes it easier for people to find you. And it's you they want to find. People want to connect to you. They don't want to connect to your company, or maybe they do, but if they want to connect to your company, they can go to your company page, your company website. It's you, the person that they want to connect with. That's one of the reasons that LinkedIn, your profile is written in first person, not third person. It's not that resume style third person. It's introducing yourself. It's letting people know a little bit about you. Not a lot of personal information. You can put things on LinkedIn like your marital status, things like that. I actually don't recommend you do that, but a little bit of personality is good. A little humor is okay too, if you're a funny person. So it's you. Just remember that. And it's settings. I'm not going to talk a lot about settings. I've just got one slide about it, but I want you to remember that this is a page that you should be spending a little bit of time on. I had a client yesterday who had never been there, he said. I guess he must have been there when he set up his profile years ago, but he didn't even know about this page. This is where you can stop a lot of that annoying stuff that goes on, the messages that come to you too often, the group messages, the emails, all those things. You have control here. So spend a little time, click on each one of these things, see what it does. In general, most of the LinkedIn defaults for this page are not bad choices. So think before changing them. If you're not sure what they mean, ask. But take a poke around and see. So what do I consider the components of a profile? You may have noticed, again, that whole LinkedIn trying to get you engaged and popping things up all the time. They're always asking you things that you, volunteer activities, causes you believe in, all kinds of things. Just because it asks you doesn't mean you have to fill it in. Just because they ask, you don't have to. These are things that I would consider the critical components. The photo, I'm not going to let you off the hook for that. You've got to have the photo. You need the professional headline. I'll be talking more about that. You need a summary. I'll be talking more about that too. Job history, it gives you credibility. It also gives a frame of reference. If people have worked with you maybe at a previous company, a reason to reach out and talk to you. Your education, in general, if your education was more than 10 years ago, you might want to remove the dates, not just because it ages you and tells people how old you are by showing your graduation dates, but also it's like if your education is 30, 40 years ago, it's sort of making you seem irrelevant. That's like a baseline, your education, and hopefully you've learned more from there. So in general, you shouldn't have your dates there. There can be reasons you do. If you've got a recent degree, perhaps gone back and got an MBA. You want your skills there. Skills are important. Groups are a bit frustrating. They used to be an incredibly valuable tool. They still can be. Unfortunately, you get so much email now from groups that it's made a lot of people turn them off and not get any communications from them. So you really have to pick and choose which groups and how you interact with them. I'm probably a member of 30. I only participate in about 3. And there are reasons that I stay a member of those other groups, I should say. I don't delete them, but I don't engage with them. Your connections are huge. You've got to have the numbers, and we'll talk about that later. Your profile headline, your tagline, as I call it, that's right under your name. The default LinkedIn will pull it up from your job description. That's not really very helpful. You've got 3 to 5 seconds. We've got short attention spans nowadays for people to look at the picture, name, headline, and know who you are, what you do. And you want to have your keywords. You may want to include your title, but tell people a little bit more about you. If you've got project manager, that is useless to me. You have project manager, Java programs for development of the next generation in something software. I can't come up with the words. I don't know technology that well. You come up with something that's interesting, engaging, and tells people what you do. So let's look at a summary. Anatomy of an amazing summary. Okay, this is your introduction and your elevator pitch. This is not Sandra Clark, an experienced LinkedIn trainer and coach. She helps people transform their profiles for results. No, boring, yawn. What you want is an introduction as if you were meeting somebody at a networking event and you're telling them a little bit about yourself. You're engaging with them. You're showing a little bit of your excitement and passion so that you're going, hi, I help people with their LinkedIn profiles because I really love to bring out of people their authentic selves so they can control their brand online. I have a passion for, I call it social media for the socially reluctant. People who are uncomfortable presenting themselves on social media, that's the people I love to work with. So share yourself, first person, not third person like your resume. You can pull the information from your resume, but please, please, please don't use that third person. You may want to talk about the results you deliver, and that is deliverables, something similar to what you might put in a resume, but again, from a first-person point of view, and also maybe more oriented to what people would want to know about. You want a call to action, if appropriate. If you're just want people to think of you as a polished professional and have a good online profile, maybe you don't have much of a call to action there. But if you have your own business and you want people to call you, only people who are connected to you can see your email. So go ahead and put it right in your summary if you want people to call you. Contact me if you need, I've got something, if you need help with your LinkedIn profile and get it done quickly. If you have any kind of business, you want to tell them why they should call you and have your email and or phone number right there in your summary so that even people who aren't connected to you can see it. If you're a job seeker, that's also critical. Recruiters don't want to have to look too hard, so make it really easy for them by having it right there in the summary. So that's your contact information. May or may not be appropriate. So your job history, again, this is giving people enough information about you to engage with you in conversation, to see whether you have something that they want to talk further with you about. So you want your keywords, and you want a sentence or two and several bullets. It doesn't have to be a lot. You want people to be intrigued enough to learn more about you. If you've got quantifiable deliverables, if there are a lot of engineers out there, I'm guessing you have. You've improved the time to market. If you're marketing people, salespeople, you've saved your company money. You've delivered incredible things. So if you've got that, brag about it a little bit. And that whole bragging thing, some of us have a little bit of a problem with doing that. It feels inappropriate. We weren't brought up to brag. Nice girls don't brag, my mother would say. But there are ways to talk about yourself that aren't bragging. You can say things like in that first person summary, you can say, people say about me that I'm the person they come to get the job done on time, under budget. You can have a quote about something somebody has said about you. So you kind of remove it to allow somebody else to say something nice about you, and it doesn't feel so uncomfortable. So the size of your network matters. It used to be people said, I'm only going to connect with people I really know well. Well, I know about you guys, but that would maybe be 30 people if I include my family. Or they would say, okay, well, I'll include the people I know pretty well, I've worked with, I have a professional relationship with. I could maybe add another 100. That's not going to do you a lot of good. If you have under 100 people, network connections on LinkedIn, you are only visible to 5% of the LinkedIn population. And visible means you can only see through the third degree, people who are degrees away from you, so your friends of friends. That means it's really hard for you to do meaningful searches to find people or for them to find you. If you have over 500, now the world is open to you. You are pretty much visible to everybody. It doesn't take that many to actually, 500 is not that large a number. And I'll show you a little tip later about how you can have all of those connections. You will know who they are. I've got about 1,900 connections somewhere in there. I actually pretty much know who they all are because I use this little feature that LinkedIn has that most people ignore. It's been there for a long time, but we somehow don't notice it. So we got to have a little conversation here, guys. I'm sorry, but there's etiquette. Who knew? There's a mismanners for LinkedIn. And there's a number of things that I would consider good etiquette on LinkedIn, but this is my big one. This brings us to Mistake number 3. Okay, the generic, I want to add you to my connections, my professional network on LinkedIn. I'm betting that all of you have received invitations like that. And you're going, so what? I'd like dessert for dinner every day. It's not going to happen. You've got to personalize it. Now, LinkedIn is to blame a lot for this, because if on one of their pages you see a whole bunch of things that says people you might know, and it's got a little connect button there. If you click that connect button, it automatically sends out this generic invitation. If you're on your phone or your tablet, you're sitting in a meeting and you're bored, you get the phone under and you go on LinkedIn and you just go connect, connect, connect. It's going to send out this thing. There's a number of reasons not to do this. 1, people are offended by it. 2, it's wasting an opportunity to build a relationship. If you send out too many of these that people decline, LinkedIn will kind of blackball you a little bit and make you have to put the email address in for people you want to connect with. Lots of reasons not to do it. And the way to avoid that is always personalize. It doesn't have to be anything major. This is just a very simple add-on sentence. I was going to be presenting at Silicon Valley University, and I wanted to connect to one of the students in advance so we could do a little work together and while I was doing the presentation. So I just sent, I'm looking forward to teaching your class.linkedin, and I'd like to add you to my professional network. If you go to a networking event and you meet 10 people, you've got their business cards, you can write something in a Word document that's generic. It was a pleasure meeting you at the whatever networking event last night, and I'd like to add you to my professional network. Just copy it into each individual request, and you get to the individual request that gives you this option by going to that person's individual profile page, click on the button, the connect there. Some of them actually have changed. You have to click on the down arrow next to the send email, and then you'll get an option to connect. Personalize the message. It's so worthwhile. So now I'm going to take you to my favorite thing about LinkedIn that you don't take advantage of. If you are connected to somebody, you have these 2 tabs. One says relationship, one says contact info, and you can make notes and other things there that are private to you. Now, you can see these when these are only your connections and your notes on their profile individually. They can't see them. Now, because I share my screen quite often when I'm working with people, people see my notes, so I have to be a little discreet. I used to be sometimes a little snarky, and I would put smart-ass comments about what I thought about the person. So now I have little code words like interesting personality. But anyways, your notes are private, and as you screen share, you can add tags. The default is about 3 or 4 tags: colleagues, friends, maybe one other. But you can add as many as you want. I usually will tag people if there's more than 20 people. So when I'm a member of a number of associations, I tag them for that association. It doesn't matter how many years later, I can quickly look at their profile and go, how the heck do I know them? Oh, yeah, we were members of that organization together. You can do more than one tag. It's so valuable. There are other ways you can use tags. You can sort. You can send messages to tagged groups, all kinds of things. I'm not going to talk about those. They go into an area that's called social selling. But it's just, I don't know about you, but I need a little more help as I get older with labels. Just think of it as a label. And then your notes, I put usually a date. LinkedIn does a date by default, but I have reasons that I like to put my own date there. And you just put something, met them at the such and such event and talked with them about empty nest syndrome, or talked about the latest technology in whatever. They might have an in for finding the latest out about something. You put a little note, and then when I follow up with that person, I've now got a conversation all ready to start with them. It's not just this pile of business cards in my drawer. It's not for those of you old enough to remember Rolodexes, it's not just this Rolodex of names and numbers. It's a meaningful relationship extension. So we are getting to where we're going to have times to ask questions, but I wanted to make sure you were aware. I have on my website It's a free checklist. And what it is a self-scoring. You can score your own profile, sort of see where it is. I think it's a maximum score of 50. And it's just meant to be a little fun way of looking at your profile. It also can be used as a way of working through improving your own profile, kind of key things to think about. So go ahead, go to my website, linkedinmentoring.com/checklist. You'll see if you go on the top menu bar, the checklist, download it, and that will also add you to my mailing list. I send out a newsletter maybe once a month, if you're lucky, with tips and tricks about using LinkedIn. You also can set up a 30-minute consultation with me, and we'll talk about your profile and what I might be able to do to help you. That's also on my website. I have blogs there that are searchable, so you can go to my blogs and put in a search word, skeptics, and you'll see the blog I wrote about skeptics. You can put in summary or headline, and any blogs I've written about that you can search. My blogs are also on LinkedIn. That's one of the ways I show thought leadership, but it's they're not searchable in the same way. So check out my website. It's meant to be a useful resource. I strongly encourage that.
Question is whether you should get a paid LinkedIn account.
Okay, great question. Paid LinkedIn. In general, I usually recommend not, which is one of the many reasons I don't work for LinkedIn. And the reason for that is I consider it pretty darn expensive. And I'm not sure that it gives you a lot. If you are a recruiter, I actually met this morning with a recruiter. She showed me the recruiter tool that she uses so that I can make sure that the advice I'm giving to job seekers is the most accurate. She pays, I think, $400 a month for that tool. The Sales Navigator, I think, is $100 a month. So if you're in that kind of profession, it may be appropriate. If you're in business development, maybe. If you're a job seeker, you might want to consider doing it. You can get it usually for free for a month. Just make sure, because you have to give your credit card to do that, that you make a note on the calendar that says turn off after a month. Check it out. Theoretically, it pulls your profile up higher in searches by recruiters. The recruiter I was talking to didn't seem to think it did particularly. I don't know. I'll investigate that further. It has some search things that are kind of cool. If you're really into research, you can dig a lot deeper with paid versions. You can find people by their industry, by their years in the business, things that for business development are kind of useful. But in general, I have a free version. And I probably shouldn't say why, because I'm probably going to take it away from me if I say this too often that it's not worth it. LinkedIn gave it to me for free because I do work with some nonprofit boards, and they actually have a whole division that helps people who are in volunteer organizations and boards, that you can use it specifically to find board members, volunteers. And because I'm on a board and I did their training, they gave it to me for free for 5 years. So I thank them for that, and I use it to show my clients why they don't need it. Anyway, so good question. Thank you.
We have a live audience question.
Hi, Sandra. I'm one of those people with fewer than 100 contacts. How do I decide who to connect to build my network?
That's a great question, because for each person it's going to be a little different. A job seeker, someone in their own business wanting to grow and promote their business, it's going to be a little different. So say, for example, you were a job seeker. You're maybe going to be a little wider in your network than some people. You also can do things like, there's an expression, it's called a lion. It's a LinkedIn open networker. And that is somebody who connects to anybody and everybody with no discrimination at all. We won't talk about the reasons why they do that. But I
think they just didn't collect enough marbles or dolls when they were kids.
Oh, okay. One of my skeptics here. But anyways, there are reasons that can be worthwhile doing that. But in general, I would not recommend you become a lion. However, you may, if you want to grow your network, and there's reasons for you to do that, which, as I say, would have to be a discussion we had about you specifically, you can connect to a lion. And so now you have 100. You're connected to a lion with 10,000. You now are only 2 degrees away from all of his 10,000. his 10,000 people are connected to 1 million. You're now only 3 degrees away from 1 million people. So you can have the search capabilities very quickly without growing your network. So it's one of the little cheat things I teach people who are kind of growing their profile fast. But you need to make those decisions individually, a little looser than people you know really closely, but not maybe just unlimited. I'm pretty picky these days because I find most people seem to want to connect to me to sell me something. Mm-hmm. And if they do that, if I accept their connection request and they immediately try to sell me something, I just disconnect. So if you haven't asked that question, I'll answer it anyways. You can disconnect to somebody. It does not send them a message. Very easy to do. There's a couple of places you can do it on their profile, or you can do it from your connections page. Very easy. So any other questions?
Yeah, what is the acceptable length in the summary section of the LinkedIn?
Okay. Well, there's always more than one answer to things. The actual number of characters is 2,000 characters, and my profile is an example of using the full 2,000. In general, I don't recommend that you use all of those characters because I think we have a short attention span. We don't want to read that much. So the reason I have it is because I have my targeted audience. So I have my companies, job seekers, students, and I space it out. Those spaces count as characters. So I use the white space to tell people, enough information to contact me. Probably half that amount is more than enough. A couple of sentences, some bullets, and some contact information. Enough to give a flavor of you, who you are, but not so much. Some people are real minimalists, and some people have a hard time cutting out. So that's the 2,000 characters, but anything shorter than that is probably better.
All right, we have another one on changing careers and probably industries. I'm not sure what I'm changing to, but what do I put or list in the interim since I'm looking for work but not necessarily the same field?
Okay. I just had that discussion this morning with the recruiter I was talking to, and one of the things, if you know the field you're moving into, that's a little easier. If you don't have that background, what you need to do is establish thought leadership in that field. You need to show that articles that you've read about it, that you need to share, things you're writing about, maybe some classes you're taking. You need to show that you're moving into that space and start to be seen in that field. In terms of, your job title, you can't really put a job title of something that you haven't got yet. If you don't know what it is, that's a little tricky. But at least you can be polished and professional, and you can show what you have done, that you are somebody that I would want to meet and engage with. When you're in interim, I'm not sure that I have any specific advice, but if you know where you want to get to, I do have some ideas. What else have you got there?
Go ahead.
I'm always worried when Kurt asks a question.
Be very aware of putting both in your summary and your job history those keywords, because recruiters have the ability to search on keywords. Mm-hmm. I've had several members tell me, somebody called me up explicitly about a job I held 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so if it doesn't reflect, if it's too vague, you've got to get the buzzwords, you've got to get the keywords for your field in there.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is I left out a couple of things that I realized if Bill Hewlett's ghost came to me and said, would you do this project again, I wouldn't. So why the heck was it on my profile?
Good point. Yeah, there may be stuff you want to remove. Usually we don't recommend anything older than 10 years ago because who cares 10 years ago? But for some of you, I work with, it's a company of interim CFOs. There are 26 partners. And the fact that they have 30, 40 years of history is what they bring to the table as an interim CFO. Some of them are interim CFOs for one company. Some of them are interim CFOs for as many as 6 companies. Small startups don't need them full time. And the fact they've got all that rich history is great. We're not trying to obscure their age, their years of history. So for them, we've got it all on there. And there may be reasons. Maybe you want to do something again that you used to do. You might want to bring it up. Or a company you worked for. Gee, maybe HP you want on that list because it's, a pretty prestigious company. You might want it there. So there are things you can do that lists it there. You can include that in your summary, but still delete it from your job history. We don't want everything in there. Let me just see if there's another online question.
There's, it's actually an online question, but it's part of my question too, so we can do it twice. So somebody said they accidentally did 2 profiles and they'd like to merge them. And then I'd like to add on with me, because I've done that too, and I really want to only have one Barbara Madden Ameriprise Financial Advisor profile. I don't want to have multiple ones. I teach financial planning at the local college, and maybe years ago I accidentally set one up, and I don't want to deal with 2. So, and I went into the school one, and I can't figure out how to axe it off.
My worst case was somebody with 6 profiles.
Hey.
And that was before LinkedIn was willing to help you. They actually are willing to help you now. If you know, usually the reason it's set up is that you need to have all of the emails that anybody might use for you in LinkedIn. You don't show them. You just have them in your privacy and settings page, because then if somebody sends you a request to connect using that old email, then LinkedIn knows it's you. Otherwise, what used to happen is you said, yes, of course, I know Barbara Madden, I'll accept her. And you did that, and at that other email, and it set up a whole new profile.
The secondary address.
Yes, it actually is against LinkedIn's terms of service to have more than one. So those of you who think you want to because you have 2 different identities, don't do it. I do advise people if they
don't even chase out the fakes.
No,
don't get upset about it, but you do want one single really good profile.
It's not an appropriate thing to do, and it's very confusing.
Yes.
So what you want, there are steps. Just put in your browser search how to merge or delete my old profiles. Okay. If you know how to get back into it, if you know the email and the password, you still have access. Then when you go in the privacy and settings, there's a place down the bottom under account information that says remove this profile, delete this profile.
Excellent.
So if you can get in, that's easy. If you don't know, which is the case with most people, then you need to do the search, and there are like different steps according to, are there one? Do you want to keep your connections and merge them both? Does one have only one connection? You don't care. There's different steps, and you have to go through all of that in order to get to the page that finally allows you to fill in a request for LinkedIn to fix it for you. And they do respond pretty quickly, usually within 48 hours, and they send you an email that asks you exactly what you've just filled in on the form, and you have to breathe, be patient with some of these, and just fill the same information in again, copy and paste it from where it is at the very bottom of that email they've just sent to you, put it in again. It takes a good 2 weeks or more, but they do get there eventually. It happens a lot, and it's just, you just have to deal with it.
It's also a good reason to use your personal email rather than your work email. That's why people have all these accounts.
Not necessarily. You need to have both on your profile, because I know you professionally.
But as your primary email.
Actually, not necessarily. But you want to have them both in your profile. In general, if you're in the workplace, it may be more appropriate to have your work one. Different cases, but you want to have them all in there. But when
you change jobs, you lose access to that email address.
Yes, but not if you've got your personal one on there as well.
Exactly.
It's only the work one. So you're good. Anything else? I see you pointing at the screen there.
Okay, so we had one that talked about, when you were talking about the notes and tags on the profile that only you can see. So it would appear that's available on the free account.
Yes.
And then he's saying, how do we access that?
If you go to the profile of somebody you're connected to, right under their picture is 2 little tabs. One says relationship, one says contact. Click in the relationship, it opens up. Actually, on my computer, the default is that's open already. There is a little bug in LinkedIn. It's been there for years. They'd rather do cool new things than fix old problems. But, you don't know anything about those young engineers that rather do the cool new things than fix things. But that bug means that sometimes those 2 tabs don't appear. You refresh the page, it might appear. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I've refreshed it 6 times, hasn't appeared. I just breathe, and I go back to it the next day. But usually it's there. But it is a little, if it doesn't appear, it's just because there's a little glitch in LinkedIn. And often there are little glitches. It's not you. It's them.
Thank you.
So just don't get upset. Don't blame yourself. And the mistakes are great to make. Because if you make a mistake and you send out, for example, one of those generic requests, and it's like, dang, I meant to send out a personal one, send a follow-up message and say, you know what, I really wanted to send a personal message because I so enjoyed talking with you last night.
Nice.
Now you've done the extra step. You know, I make so many mistakes. I tell you, I'm the queen of fixing mistakes because, you know, I've made them. Nothing you've done I probably haven't done before you.
Several members report that they were able to find ex-HPers at companies they were interested in working at with a free membership. It's called Advanced People Search. It's not that obvious on the screen. And it's very powerful. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I got an offer from company X, but it's really a bunch of jerks. You can, or I want to get into company X, you can do that.
The advanced search feature is phenomenal. The free version is great. You can find jobs, you can find people, you can save your searches for people for jobs. It's incredible, so well worth doing. There's a lot of searches. It is a Boolean search as well, so you can do all kinds of and plus, but exclude this. I'm not good at that, so I don't teach it, but people who are good at that, engineers probably are. Amazing things you can do with the strings. So have we got a last question? Oh, we've got four or five more.
Okay. So can you explain endorsements?
Endorsements. Okay. Wow. Endorsements were created for recruiters to help them sort through your skills to see what you were endorsed for. They kind of have become what I call Mickey Mouse because, again, I blame LinkedIn for that because their weird and wonderful algorithm pops up things, endorsements like for skills that you don't have, that people don't know about. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And people want to be nice. So they say, yes, endorse somebody. So I like to keep my integrity. I don't ever accept what LinkedIn suggests to endorse somebody for. I go to their profile, I go to their skills, I click on the little plus sign next to the actual skill that I want to endorse somebody for. In the same way, if somebody endorses me for something I don't have, I had 200, 300 endorsements for nonprofits because I worked for the university, and boy, were we nonprofit, for years. But it wasn't useful to me, so I just deleted it entirely as a skill. You can change the order of the skills. They're automatically in the order in which you have the number of endorsements. You don't have to live with that. You can change them. You can delete them. You can accept. Somebody might send you endorsements for 6 things. You can delete 4 of them and just accept the 2 you want. Right. So you have a lot of control. So they're a bit Mickey Mouse, but it's like a pat on the back. Hi, Barbara, you're awesome. Why not?
Right. Someone is saying that they're pretty much they cut and paste everything from their resume into LinkedIn. Is there something that they should be thinking about with LinkedIn versus the resume to distinguish it?
Absolutely. It's the case for resume, if they're a job seeker, I'm assuming. It's a personal intrigue people enough to want to know more about you, to want to get your resume. In a resume, it wouldn't be appropriate to put something about the fact that you're a golfer. In LinkedIn, you might, and people might want to have a conversation with you because golfers are kind of like this crazy fraternity, and if they see that you golf or you're a snowboarder, that's a conversation starter that wouldn't be in your resume. So they're different. You can take the basic content and turn it around into first person as a starting point, but it's very obvious when that's what you've done, and it's just boring. It means you don't understand social media, you don't understand LinkedIn. It dates you.
Good.
What else you got there?
We got how to protect privacy.
Oh, God, privacy. I'm working a lot with psychologists these days, and trust me, privacy is the buzzword. There are things that you can do. You can make your connections. Right now, if I connect to you, I can see your connections. You can make those connections private so that I only can see the ones we share. In general, I don't recommend that, but there are situations. You can make a number of things, like financial planners I work with. They're not supposed to receive endorsements or recommendations. You can turn it so that it doesn't allow that option for people to do. There are a number of other privacy settings. Again, spend some time in your privacy and settings and poke around. You'll see there are a number. You can hide that you were looking at other people's profiles. Make your profile private so that you can look and it will just show as someone anonymous looked at the profile. A lot of things you can do. Some things you can't. A new thing that's very disturbing to my privacy fanatical clients is that all of a sudden, you know how LinkedIn shows these people you might know? What they're finding is it's populating with names of people that are their former clients, people they might have met with, which seems to indicate that it's looking at your email. And it's sort of the last 6 months it's become much worse, and I'm actually investigating more about that to see.
Do not let them download your contact list from your email. They keep pushing you to do that.
Yeah, that's a part of it, but actually these are people that have not done that, so that's part of the reason. But they are looking at some things, and there are some problems there. So you can do things to make it more private, but there are also some things you give up privacy if you live in the modern age. You're out there, you might as well control what's out there.
And the other thing is turn off the broadcast while you're editing.
Right. Yeah. Although that's just a minor thing. It's a little embarrassing. Again, if you embarrass yourself, that's fine. Just fix it. Not a big deal.
How do you turn off that broadcast? Because I need to do a lot of updates.
There's two places. One's in the privacy and settings, where it's the only place it used to be, but now they've made it easier. They've actually made something easier. I'm so pleased. On your actual edit profile page, right-hand side, halfway down, there's a little toggle switch that says Notify My Network. Just turn it to no. And then when you're ready to broadcast, turn it back on. It doesn't then retroactively send a note out about all your changes. So if you want the message to go out that you've got a new job, that you put a picture, turn it back on first and then make that change for that notice to go out. Okay, what else?
All right, this one's interesting. I don't always want to have colleagues as contacts, but it would be rude to decline someone I work with. How do I avoid the two profiles or set a particular person so they can't see my profile?
You know, we have, that maybe I need to refer them to my psychologist. No, no, there are reasons. I understand that. And it is difficult if a colleague invites you to connect. Now, sometimes I work with people, and they're in sales, like they're realtors, and they might not, if they're connected to the clients, they might not want other realtors to see who they're connected to.
Right.
But in that case, for them, it may be appropriate to make their connections private so that they don't, they can't troll.
But if you make them private, it's private to everybody.
Yes,
you can't just isolate. Now the question is, when is it too soon to connect? For instance, is it appropriate to connect to a speaker at an event you attended, even if you didn't personally introduce yourself to them?
Absolutely. But you use the personalized message. And you do that. What a compliment that is.
Right.
It's like, I didn't get to come up and talk to you after the meeting, but I so enjoyed your presentation, and I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn.
Nice.
Love it.
Nice.
Absolutely. I would say if you were going to follow up further, like perhaps you want something from that speaker, maybe an opportunity to talk, you want to network with them, there's a reminder feature on LinkedIn. I would set the reminder for maybe a few days or a week later, because one, if they have just done a speaking engagement, they're usually really busy the next few days catching up with all of that. So do your follow-up later, but go ahead right away and do that. It's only a compliment. And if they don't accept, quite frankly, a lot of speakers don't use LinkedIn that much. And they're not ignoring you. They're just not. I've had people accept my connection request. You know how you see so-and-so's information 6 months, 9 months later. And they're people that are fairly, out there, but obviously not using LinkedIn.
Information about one's contacts.
You can, on your connections page, you can filter your connections by tags. And so if I've got people who are tagged, because I've now been connecting with a lot of HP people, and some of them have become clients, and I've got to know and enjoy so many of you, and I've tagged HP. So I could send a message out to all the HP. I don't know if you've noticed lately, they've changed their message center. And it used to be I could send a message to all the people tagged, say HP, and say, here's an update. You were asking about privacy, and here's an article that might help you about that. And I could send it to you with everybody BCC'd, but with the new message center, you can't BCC. It shows everybody's email, so I can only do that one at a time.
Yeah.
But just to be able to filter and sort, I can do that. You accept the connection, but you don't want to see their stuff in the news feed.
Okay.
So in the news feed, where somebody has posted something, there's a little down arrow next to that person's actual post in your news feed.
Okay.
In general, on LinkedIn, watch for little gray down arrows.
Okay.
They're very hard to see.
Okay.
In the same way with each email, to turn off that particular type of email, there's a faint URL in faint blue against a gray background at the very bottom of the email. Like
Right.
a public notice in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
There is, in general, a lot of things there that are, if you mouse over things,
Yes.
you will see things appear. You might want to change, you have two jobs at the same time, and you want to put your primary one above. You can do that with a gray bar that appears on the left-hand side of those two jobs. Maybe your education, you remove the dates, and you want a different school to appear above the other. And there are gray bars on the side. So mouse over, look for gray stuff, and you might find all kinds of interesting things you can do.
So now, like when I get an invitation and I don't know the person, and it's not personalized because I don't know them, I don't decline. I just delete it.
I would go ahead and decline it.
Okay.
And you can do that in a couple of different
But you
ways.
know what? Those people that I get that from, that I think they're trying to sell something or whatever, and I decline it. It's not like I keep getting more emails.
Usually LinkedIn itself, not the person, but LinkedIn will send you so-and-so's invitation is awaiting an answer or something.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll nag you a couple times.
All right, I haven't been. All right, I suppose it could be tags, but that presumes you already have information about the contacts. It sounded like it was a feature to find information you don't already have.
Tags are your personal labels of people. The advanced search is how you find advanced information. It's still only going to find what's on their profile. If you want to find out more about them beyond what's on their LinkedIn profile, there are ways to do that now. Going to go and work on your profiles. You're going to download my checklist and start working on it. You're going to contact me if you want to have a call to you can use my online scheduler to schedule 30-minute appointments with me and see if you want to work with me. And if you have email with questions, it's a pleasure getting to talk to all of you, though I can't see your faces. I hope it's being useful to you, and please do stay in touch and reach out with a personalized invitation to me to connect. I'd be delighted to accept.
Okay, so I want to thank Addison Avenue, First Tech Federal Credit Union. I want to thank thanks to the First Tech IT Group, and special thanks to Sandra Clark. And thanks to Kurt for setting up all the advertising and the IT setup. And lastly, if you go to the hpalumni.com website and under contact, there's a listing of all the volunteers and their responsibilities that make this HP alumni such a valuable member to your personal network.
This event is organized by the 25,000-member independent Hewlett-Packard Alumni Association, operated by former employees who volunteer their time, not endorsed or supported by HP. We help each other with life after HP.